All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 180. We are reaching the halfway point of the year. So today, we're going to talk about some Daggerheart stuff. Quick update on the health for those of you that care. Still not good, but I've been putting off this video for 2 days, and lying in bed was making me feel worse. So I'm at my computer to hopefully make my body stop hating me as much. And we're talking about this. So, Daggerheart update. The good thing. Daggerheart has this thing they call the whitelist for virtual tabletops. And what that means, as far as I can tell, is according to the Daggerheart community gaming license, that is basically the OGL but for Daggerheart. So according to the community gaming license, you are allowed to use anything in the SRD, the systems reference document, which is almost everything in the core book, aside from most of the campaign frames and a few chapters, a few chapters about like best player practices and best GM practices. But all of the like character creation stuff and all that stuff, all of that is in the Daggerheart SRD, system reference document. So according to the community game license, they actually significantly control what you're allowed to make from the SRD. And one of the things that they limit is anything for a virtual tabletop that they don't specifically okay. And what that is meant thus far has been Demiplane and Roll20 were the only two virtual tabletops that you were allowed to create anything for Daggerheart on. And basically what that meant is if you wanted to play Daggerheart on Foundry, you could, but you couldn't have Foundry automate anything for you. You would have to use your own character sheets or use Demiplane's character sheets, and Foundry would literally just be a virtual tabletop. You weren't allowed to recreate or put anything into Foundry. The same thing is true about Fantasy Grounds, Owlbear Rodeo, literally any other virtual tabletop out there. The only one that has official Daggerheart support, and according to the community gaming license, is the only one that fans and community members are allowed to make content for. And that upset quite a few different people. Specifically, we've been having conversations about Foundry on here and how I'm not the biggest fan of it. Not so much that it's a bad tabletop, but how often I have been told that it's just vastly superior to Roll20, and then everything that they say I can do in Roll20. I have, if anyone doesn't know this, I have both traditional PTSD and complex PTSD. And complex PTSD is effectively when you develop PTSD, but it's not from one specific traumatic event. It's from repeated abuse and the things like that. And I've got plenty of that, let me tell you. Well, one of the triggers for my complex PTSD is I've had a couple different people in my life that have used gaslighting to control and abuse me. And so when people say things that are obviously untrue to me, where they say something and it's just like, that's blatantly false. How do you do that? My brain instantly goes, oh, they're gaslighting you. They're trying to hurt you. And I go instantly into fight or flight. So that's one of the reasons why I react so poorly when people say things that are just demonstrably false, because it triggers my CPTSD. So that's why it may seem like I have this weird hate boner for Foundry, it's not. It's a perfectly fine TTRPG. However, in a very similar vein to Pathfinder Bros, the people that really, really support it and are really, really into it like to use misinformation or just outright lies to try and convert you over to the thing that they like. And I think a lot of them simply do not know that what they're saying is either blatantly untrue or just a misunderstanding of something. So I'm not blaming these people for it, but it's something that triggers me. And so I will always react very strongly to things like that. And again, I understand that it's a trigger for me. And so I've gotten to the point where I can kind of separate myself from my emotional reaction for the most part. But I'll let you know this right now. If you want to convince me to do something, the absolute worst way to do it is to say something that I later can either I instantly know at the time is false, or to say something that I later on can prove is false. Because that will, again, it associates you with really, really bad people in my past. So that being said, the Foundry people in particular were really, really upset about this because if you don't understand how Foundry works, Foundry, you pay to be able to use it. It's $50 one time, and I'm assuming here it goes on sale and things like that. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming if you wait for a sale, you can probably get it for a better price than $50. But it's a one-time purchase. The problem with Foundry is Foundry in and of itself has nothing. It is literally just a tabletop, but it has no plugins or anything that allow you to play anything bundled with the program. So, in order to do all of the cool stuff that Foundry can actually do, you have to download these modules or add-on. I don't know what they're called, but basically they're just things that you install, very similar to a mod for any other game, that adds extra stuff to Foundry. And there's tons of it. The Foundry community is amazing at supporting Foundry and updating it and creating all of this amazing stuff. And some of it you have to pay for, some of it is free, which are both wonderful and amazing things. I am a fervent believer in the idea that if you are creating something that other people are going to consume, you should be compensated for it in some way, shape, or form. So I have no problem with people on Foundry making money off of the incredibly hard work that they do. Because in order to get things to work for Foundry, you actually do, first of all, have to learn how Foundry works. Second of all, I believe there is at least minimal coding involved in order to get it to work. Like, I mean, I showed you guys on Roll20, you have to understand minimal coding to create macros. And that's pretty basic compared to the stuff that you can do in Foundry. So all this is great. However, because the community gaming license stated that you are not allowed to use the SRD to create things for any other virtual tabletop, it meant that people on Foundry, despite the fact that there were tons of people chomping at the bit to make a Daggerheart plugin for Foundry, no one was allowed to do it. And I would assume, this is an assumption on my part, it is not based on any sort of fact I know anywhere else, I would assume if someone had attempted to do that for Foundry, they would have faced some sort of legal trouble. I don't know if Foundry in and of themselves tries to police their own modules and stuff like that. I don't know if they even could, because again, a lot of people use Foundry, and the idea of them policing every single module that is created for it seems astronomical. But it's theoretically possible they might be able to do something. So if that existed, I would assume Foundry would be legally obligated to shut it down. Whatever website hosted it, it would be very, very simple for the Daggerheart and Darrington Press people to just go to the website hosting it and submit a DMCA takedown notice, because it would be violating copyright to do that. And so this made a lot of Foundry people very, very upset. And for those of us that understand copyright law and trademark law and all of those other intellectual property laws, it was a weird thing to do for a number of reasons. The biggest of which is the SRD is already free. A lot of times the reason that you will put out these DMCAs and stuff like that is because people will take paid content and release it for free, thus preventing you from making money. You don't want that to ever fly. You 100%, you always, 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 always have to instantly snap that out. What has happened to my camera? Oh, I'll play with it later. For some odd reason, my camera keeps turning on its own, and it's annoying the hell out of me. I don't know what's happening that's causing it to do that. You may notice that things are in different places. You know, I'm just going to move it now because I don't like where it's aiming. There, now you can see my whole thing. All right. Anyway, so with all of that said, Darrington Press recently updated their community gaming license, and they added Foundry to the whitelist for virtual tabletops, which effectively means the SRD and modules specifically created, or whatever they call them for Foundry, specifically created to allow you to play Daggerheart on Foundry, are now legal as long as they follow the community guidelines. Which in and of itself, again, is weird. And we'll talk about that in just a second here, but plain and simple, Foundry is now open to Daggerheart. I know I have at least one really big Foundry supporter here, so I would be very interested as soon as you find a Foundry module for Daggerheart. I would be very, very interested to hear what your personal opinion on how it works in Foundry goes. Like, I don't own Foundry. I don't currently have any money because house repairs, this is stuff that I unfortunately have to cover myself, means that all excess money has to be put aside to try and pay for this $1,200 to $1,300 cost. Or I just get to breathe radioactive gas, which is apparently the second leading cause of lung cancer in the world. So, yeah, not big choice there. But yeah, anyone that's real big into Foundry, if you find, I don't know if there even is a Daggerheart Foundry module thing yet. I have a hard time believing that it's going to be very long before one shows up if there isn't one already. So I'd be very, very interested to see how it feels running Daggerheart and Foundry. Again, especially since I've been running Daggerheart in Roll20. I love it to death. I have 2 episodes of my Village of Hamlet run through already on the channel here. If you want to see that stuff, it's been a ton of fun to do. And the integration with Demiplane has made running on Foundry unbelievably simple and fun. Like, it's just been crazy easy for everyone to be able to play. I've even, since they're doing a dungeon crawl, the thing about dungeon crawls is as you go through different places, you find stuff. And so there's technically 2 different loot tables on the Foundry, or not on Foundry, in the core book for Daggerheart. And all of those different items are already loaded into Demiplane. So anytime I give my players a new item, all they have to do is go to their equipment screen on their character sheet, which they can do directly from Roll20. They don't have to have Demiplane open in any way, shape, or form. So they open up their character sheet in Roll20. They go to the equipment, they say manage equipment, then they just search for the name of the item, and they instantly have the actual item in their inventory. It's been really, really nice. Foundry is not going to have that kind of access. So either the person that's going to make the Foundry plugin is going to have to find a way to do that, which I assume would not be exorbitantly difficult. The difficulty is going to come from manually entering on all the data. To me, that doesn't sound like a particularly difficult coding problem, let's say. So yeah, I'm very, very interested to see how all this works. I need to. And yes, I know I have another drink up there. I just forgot about it, and you all saw that because my camera was moved. Anyway, yeah, like that's the big thing. So everyone that loves Foundry and wants to be able to play Daggerheart on Foundry, now as soon as someone makes a module, it's going to be there. I have no idea how long it's going to take. My thought process on this is I kind of think there was probably at least one, if not quite a few different people that were already making a Daggerheart Foundry plugin thing that were just waiting for the go-ahead to be able to do it. So again, I have no idea if or when it's going to be a thing, but 100% it'll be a thing. I will guarantee that. Now, to get back to the community gaming license. The community gaming license is such a weird flex for Darrington Press, and we keep seeing them do weird things with it. And I can only assume that somebody that they're getting their legal advice from does not understand how tabletop RPGs work. And the reason that I say that is the community gaming license does what you would assume an OGL does, but then it tries to control the things that you make from that. And that's the thing that doesn't make sense to me. A lot of games have their own version of an OGL. Cypher has their own thing. It is significantly less limited than the Darrington Press community gaming license. I don't think I've ever seen a gaming license, an OGL style for the thing, as limiting, except for possibly the Orc license that what was it called? Paizo teamed up with a few other people to create the Orc license after the whole OGL debacle. That was mostly lies. And that license in and of itself was another one that I just looked at and went, wow, this is a horrible license, and I would never want to attempt to use this because a lot of the stuff in that license gives them implicit permission to prevent you from doing a lot of different things. Again, it just gives this weird flex of control. And again, the weird thing about the community gaming license is, again, they limit what virtual tabletops you can use to play the game. They try to limit what you're allowed to stream when you're playing it, which I've never heard. Like, I don't even think Paizo does that. I don't think I've ever heard of a company for a tabletop RPG trying to prevent people from effectively playing it in public. Like, that is it's incredibly weird flex. That, and I've mentioned this before, contracts, which the community gaming license is a contract. Contracts in general are worthless until they are enforced. And what I mean by that is a contract, even with your signature and everything on it and everything being quote unquote legally binding, is a completely worthless piece of paper until somebody takes somebody else to court for breaking it. Because at that point, it actually has legal weight. Up until that point, it's a pretty piece of paper. And there have been quite a few different times where contracts have been signed that have later been declared either illegal or not enforceable. One of my favorite examples in the state of California, I believe specifically, something that was extremely common were these things called perpetual releases or perpetual contracts. Basically what they were is they were a contract that lasted forever. Every other contract in the world has an end date of some sort. Even an employment contract becomes null and void once you are no longer employed with them. However, A perpetual contract exists forever. And by signing it once, you are just declaring until the end of your life, and technically beyond, if there's something in there that you sign away that exists after you are gone, they're bound to this contract. And somebody finally decided to say that doesn't seem fair. No one can sign a contract with enough knowledge to understand the implications of forever. And so they took them to court, and California found that perpetual contracts are unenforceable because part of signing a contract, the person that's signing it has to understand what it is that they're signing. Now, if they refuse to read the contract and then sign something, they're not able to say, well, I didn't understand what I was signing, because they had the ability to know what they were signing. They just refused to do so. But the argument that was brought up and held up in court was that no one can actually understand the full weight of perpetually signing something away. It's just not possible. So perpetual contracts are considered unenforceable in California, and I believe across the country. I'm not sure, because technically state courts are only going to be state courts. But here's another fun thing: once something has been decided and then redecided on appeal or reaffirmed on appeal, it becomes what's called common law. And even if it's in a different jurisdiction, you can cite common law from another court in the U.S. and state, hey, I believe that this court should rule this way because another court using the exact same rules that apply to this court ruled in this particular way. Does the current court have to do that? No, they can argue over instances and stuff like that. But it acts as evidence that you can use to support your case. So even if they are not nationwide unenforceable, the fact that California, which has one of the more interesting common law systems, did it, makes it a blow across the country. Now, again, it might also be national. I'm not 100% certain. I know in California specifically, perpetual contracts are considered unenforceable. So the idea of saying, well, you're not allowed to stream this campaign frame doesn't make sense, because you can't copyright ideas or themes or anything like that. You can trademark certain things, which is how like Disney movies and stuff like that, how they can kind of get away with preventing people from creating similar stuff. It's generally done through trademarks, not through copyright. And while it's theoretically possible that every one of the campaign frames has been trademarked, I would have a hard time believing that, because some of them flirt dangerously close with other things that already exist. And I believe specifically for a trademark, they wouldn't be able to get it. Copyright is significantly looser, but trademark is really, really tough. And if anyone can basically show... trademarking and patenting kind of work in a similar process, where if anyone else can show that they have something similar to what you have, you won't get the trademark, because the trademark has to be so unique that it is 100% always identified with your company. If anyone can show, well, no, it's not, this has been identified with a different company forever, they'll go, well, then you can't get a trademark, because the entire purpose of a trademark is to prevent people from impersonating your company by using something that is inexorably tied to your company. That's the whole purpose of trademark. So the idea of Daggerheart and Darrington Press saying we are only allowed to stream the things that we tell you can stream doesn't make sense. People stream Forgotten Realms content, which is copywritten by Ed Greenwood and partially by Wizards of the Coast for the stuff that they publish. People stream Numenera content and the Strange content. Like, I have never seen a tabletop RPG that specifically states you are only allowed to stream what we allow you to stream. It's a weird flex for a license, and it doesn't... it 100% is not something that feels like the Critical Role crew is making this decision. I've never seen them try and exert this much control over something that they've created. And again, I have no idea until somebody streams something that Darrington decides is against their CGL, and Darrington actually takes them to court and a court rules on it. We have no idea if that in particular is going to be enforceable, or if it counts under fair use because you are transforming it through your telling of your own story and the things like that. Like, again, people stream pre-written adventures. Like, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen Curse of Strahd streamed. So the idea that you just can't stream something from Age of Umbra doesn't make any sense. And the virtual tabletop thing, again, doesn't make a ton of sense. Aside from the possibility that Roll20, who, for anyone that doesn't know, the parent company that owns Roll20 also owns Demiplane, and they also own Drive-Thru RPG and the DMs Guild. All of those companies are all owned by the same parent company. So unless part of getting on Demiplane required them to say that they're not allowed to run it on any other virtual tabletops, I can't understand why they would say you're not allowed to create stuff for other virtual tabletops. It doesn't make sense to me. And it's been a month since Daggerheart came out, and we already have Foundry whitelisted. So if that was part of the contract, I don't know of a single contract that just says, okay, for the first month, it's only allowed to be on our platform. That would be a really stupid contract. Limited exclusivity contracts are a thing. We see Epic did it for a while, where it's like, well, you have to release on Epic for a year, and then you're allowed to go to Steam or anywhere else. And consoles do it on a fairly regular basis. We had, for Monster Hunter World, it had a limited exclusivity contract to, I think it might have been the PS5 or the PS4, I mean. But I know it's console exclusive for a year, and then it came to PC, and I can't remember if it went to Xbox or not. So limited exclusivity deals are a thing. I've never seen a limited exclusivity deal for a month. And the fact that only Foundry has been added, again, doesn't make sense. So there's so many things about the community gaming license for Darrington that I just don't understand. Especially since we've now been kind of spoiled with D&D, with the fact that they put their SRD into Creative Commons, meaning there's literally almost no limitations to creating D&D content. You can do whatever the hell you want, and there's nothing they can do to you legally. With the community gaming license, there's a lot that they can try to do legally, and it'll really be up to someone going, you know what, I'm going to test this, and I'm willing to pay the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to go to court to deal with this, and refusing any sort of settlement agreement that happens. Because here's another fun fact. When a lawsuit is settled out of court, no common law implications can come from that. There are no precedents set from a settlement outside of court, because it's done outside of court. So in order for something like this to be declared not enforceable, somebody actually has to pay the money to go to court and challenge Darrington Press on this and get all the way to a verdict, which is incredibly expensive, and it's a gamble, because there's always going to be a chance that the judge decides to rule with Darrington, and then bad stuff can happen. You can have even more penalties. You might have to pay their legal fees, which basically bare minimum just doubled the cost of the lawsuit. If not, they may have spent significantly more money on the lawsuit than you did, and now you're looking at triple, quadruple order of magnitude increase in legal costs for yourself. So it's a very dangerous and weird thing to have to deal with. And as I said before, the California legal system is interesting. It's not quite the levels of nonsense as something like the Southern District of New York, but there's some weird stuff. One of the things I will say about the California legal system, they do tend to err on the side of consumer protection more than erring towards companies and the things like that, unless the company is part of the entertainment industry or it's the government. Then they err very, very heavily towards both of those industries, because the entertainment industry runs California. It's the reason why California has such a high GDP. It's because the entertainment industry pays their taxes there. So they will almost never do anything against the entertainment industry. And while Darrington Press is technically not the entertainment industry, it has enough connections to it. I would be real worried about suing Darrington in California unless you have an incredibly solid case. So, yeah, like I said, as it is right now, the Darrington Press Community Gaming License is restrictive enough, in my opinion, that I will not make anything for Daggerheart. I won't make anything for Candela Obscura. I don't trust the license, and I don't trust whomever is controlling it. Because again, it's not that I don't like Darrington, but whoever wrote this license is not the people at Darrington that I know. There's so much legalese in here, which is normal for a license, but there's so many things in here that it makes me feel like either they went to an outside law firm to get this done, or whomever they have on their legal team is not someone that I trust. There's too many things in the community license that I read over that just make me feel weird, and I look into it and I don't understand why it's in there. And that generally means that my knowledge of law in this particular field is limited, because it's very rare that a lawyer will put something into a legal document that has no purpose. So generally when I see something, I go, my understanding of the law states, makes me say that this is either unenforceable or doesn't make sense. I tend to err on the side of, then obviously I don't understand the law well enough to do this. So there are things about the community gaming license that give me pause. And again, I still love Daggerheart. I'm still streaming Daggerheart right now. I haven't gotten any cease and desists or anything from anybody. So we'll see what happens. But it is weird. Anyway, the big reason for this, Foundry is now whitelisted. So everyone that was chomping at the bit to get a Foundry adaptation, if it doesn't exist yet, it will exist. I will guarantee it. Somebody's going to make it. And once it does exist, I would love to hear how it works. Put it in the comments, whatever you want to do. Make your own video and then go in the comments of this video and go, hey, I made an entire video about it. And then I don't know if you can link videos in my comment section, but I can link videos in my comment section. So if somebody does actually find a Daggerheart Foundry supplement thingy, makes a video about it, comment in the comments below. As long as the thing that you're commenting from is the account that it's on, I will go to your page, I will get that video, and then I will link it in the comments, and I'll pin the comment so that people can see what the Foundry version of Daggerheart looks like. So, yeah. Anyway, it's going to be all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.